I was 5 years old when I first made this comment that I wanted a wedding without a groom. I just wanted a day about me. When I was a little girl, I always knew I didn't want a typical Armenian wedding. I've always been very different within my culture. I love my culture, but I'm not a typical Armenian. They wanted me to be an optometrist. They wanted me to marry an Armenian guy in my early 20s and have children. And I knew 100% that is not the life I wanted. I never wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to be a housewife. I never wanted to be in that 9-to-5 job. I wanted to be a business owner. And
wedding stress, family pressure, cultural expectations, and a relationship that lives by its own rules. One conversation, zero filters.
Nothing's wrong with our relationship because we are communicating about everything, whereas you guys just keep all of these hidden thoughts in your mind.
Just be true to who you are, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. We all have this one life to live, and the only way you could live it to the fullest is being true to who you are.
Today on the Daily Vixen, I have the pleasure of having one of my friends with me, Haiku, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most stressful times in a woman's life, absent probably having children. It's planning weddings. I remember planning my wedding not too long ago. 3 years ago, I was in the thick of it, and now you are currently having the pleasure of planning your own. So thank you for coming on today.
Of course, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I wanted to talk to you about what it feels like to have all of the pressures of planning a wedding and how you manage to deal with that while also managing to have your own career.
It's definitely been stressful, to say the least. We haven't even really started planning yet. The most that has been done is just picking a venue. I got lucky with that one. It was a pretty quick process for us, only because we knew what we wanted. But I am Armenian, so we do have very traditional ways of doing weddings, and mine is going to be the furthest away from traditional Armenian weddings. So I think that's what's causing more of the stress than anything else.
Okay. And how did you build up the courage to have that conversation with your parents that you weren't going to necessarily tote the line of having that traditional Armenian wedding?
I think I've been building them up for a while now. From when I was a little girl, I always knew I didn't want a typical Armenian wedding. I've always been very different within my culture. I love my culture, but I'm not a typical Armenian, so I just kind of have put myself a little further away from that, and slowly, even with little things, whether it's my career or the choices I've made in life, I've kind of prepped my parents for that. So obviously they're never going to be okay with everything I do, but I think they're finally coming to terms with it.
Okay.
Compromises have to be made.
I definitely think that during wedding planning, compromises are made literally with every single person and on every single direction. And how did it feel when you had the conversation with your fiance about, what type of wedding that you guys wanted to have?
He was pretty much on board with everything that I wanted as well. I think we are very similar in that way. He would prefer a smaller wedding. Unfortunately, that can happen because I do have a very large family. I think that was the only conversation. He preferred to just do elopement, which I would also love. But again, compromise with my family, meaning we have to do a little larger than we wanted.
I definitely know how that felt when Jimmy and I were planning our own wedding. I think that the only fight that we really truly had during wedding planning was his desire to go out of the country to make it very small so that it could be very intimate and only the people who truly wanted to be there could be there. But we had to make concessions because my dad won't get on a plane and his grandma literally hemmed and hawed until I think 3 days before our actual wedding to decide that she was going to drive up. She had said no, I think 17 times and changed her mind. So we had to compromise as well to say, we can't do it exactly the way that we wanted to. And then even being that Jimmy still wanted it to be rather small, but I knew that if we were having it in California, that we needed to include those that were very, very special to us. And my life, that was a much larger group of people than his, but that's because I tend to have a lot more friends and really gravitate towards keeping those relationships and, finding new ones. Whereas he's had the same friend group, I think, since he was like 5, and they've just stayed together, and he doesn't find the necessity to make new adult friends, whereas I do. So I do remember having to compromise on that. But I can say that I think that Jimmy truly, truly was grateful that we did the big wedding and that everyone could come together, because he's like, we would never have that opportunity again in the future. You're never going to have the ability to pull everyone from every facet of life and say, this is the only time that it's about me, 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 me. And to bring everyone together in that moment, I think is really great. So even though it's a compromise or a negotiation with your fiance or anyone else that out there listening, I think that it's super important to know that, like, even if it's not exactly what you've ever pictured in your entire life, that as long as you stay true to both your and your fiance's goals, that it will ultimately be the best thing ever, even if it's not, exactly how you pictured it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it took us, like I said, a while to kind of figure out exactly what we wanted, only because our issues are a little different. He has a lot of friends. He has a lot of close friends, and you know that
Yes.
Arthur loves his friends. They're like his family. So I could never say no. You cannot invite X, Y, and Z because those are his family. Just like I'm so close with my cousins, and again, we're Armenian, so I have a lot of cousins, and I'm very close with all of them. So that's the reason why it became big. So if we wanted to do just friends outside the country, I would have nobody there. I would essentially have like 5 people by my side while he would have like 40. So I think those are the little things, but I think it's going to be great. I mean, we found an amazing venue that's so different. It has 18 cabins, which I think, again, will be great to have all our close friends and like close my cousins all of there. So I think it should be a different experience.
What made you land on that type of venue over any other type of more traditional wedding venue?
More traditional Armenian venues are very dry, in my opinion, and then people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to just make it into their dream venue after the fact that they pay so much money for the venue. My preference is I grew up on a ranch, and that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted my roots to be shown in that way, my culture to be shown in that way. And I found this beautiful ranch on Airbnb, which I didn't even think they would allow us to do a wedding there. And somehow, magically, they allowed it. So once talking to them, I was like, this was the perfect spot. I walked in, I was like, there's nowhere else I would want to get married in.
Well, that's wonderful, because I do know that some traditional venues for Armenian weddings, or, other cultures as well, they tend to be these more kind of open spaces, like you said, that you have to bring every single thing in to cover all of the blank spaces. And that can be really difficult. But like you said, also, it's really expensive for really not really much output at the end. I mean, you're going to have it for one day, but you're not
Exactly.
going to be able to really remember the feeling that you got when you walked onto a ranch, or, to have those specialty photos, because the venue itself is not a blank canvas. It already has so much character. So I think that, really sticking to your roots is going to help bring your entire package together.
Yeah, I think that's just being in nature is what I love too. And I think just the way it's surrounded with just trees everywhere and just twinkling lights, that's all I want. I don't need flowers. And then at the end of the day, they're just dead after 4 hours of just, I don't know, us partying, and no one even's going to remember any of those flowers except pictures that I don't even know if I'll look at them years and years from now. But I think being in nature and just being surrounded with people you love and hanging out for a weekend rather than just doing a 5 hour wedding and everyone kind of going on their way, it will be a fun experience, kind of almost like going out of the country for a getaway.
I definitely think that the trend that is obviously trending up to have more of a wedding weekend versus, like you said, this 4 or 5 or even 6 hour period of time where you invite your friends and family to come and then send them on their merry way, doesn't have the same effect for the couple getting married or even those closest to them as having this entire wedding weekend that allows for them to really enjoy it from start to finish. You're not having to worry about fitting every single thing into that really, really rigid schedule. Obviously, weddings are always very scheduled so that you make sure you get everything, that you want to have done. But having that aspect of being able to stay together, not sending people away, being on the same property really gleans such a specialty to weddings. I know that that was one of the things that was very important to Jimmy as well. Jimmy wanted to ensure that if we were going to ask his friends to stand by him at our wedding, God forbid, that we were going to provide them with a place to stay. That was really important. But I think that at the very end, it really, really made the most impact because you don't get to travel with all of your friends at the same time. Especially as we get older and everyone has careers, it's very difficult. So it's really wonderful that you guys thought about that because from my own perspective, it was one of the best things that we did during our wedding.
Yeah. I mean, I remember your wedding. It was so beautiful, and even the venue itself. I think that's where our love a lot came from, just being in nature too. We were in San Luis Obispo, I believe, for your wedding. It was so beautiful just being outdoors. Everyone made fun of me, like, are you also going to get married in a barn? Because that's what I've wanted for so long. That wasn't the compromise I was able to win on. But everything else, I think having that, like you said, environment with all our friends, because like the more we're growing, everyone's having kids now. They're all getting married. And the distance is inevitable at the end of the day. It's as much as we want it to be there. Everyone's moving a little further away because that's just where they could afford a house, or that's what their career is leading them to. And we all just end up drifting apart, and having these moments like this, it's what I think will be memorable times that we could cherish for a while.
I definitely think that, bringing everyone together, especially in nature, and just having that kind of picturesque backdrop to your entire weekend with the people that are the most important to you is going to lend to having some of the best memories. I know that you just mentioned that you don't go back and potentially look at the pictures of your flowers or things like that. But it's interesting that when my computer goes on sleep and all of the photos are just cycling through so that I can see, all of the memories throughout my adulthood, that I'll see the pictures of my wedding and maybe I'm not in it, maybe I am, but it just brings back like the most vivid memories of being back there and, remembering the smells, remembering the walk in the rain towards my wedding in the barn. And, everything doesn't get to be perfect on your wedding day, but the memories that come from those imperfect moments really, truly will stay with you for your entire life. And so even though you don't think that you're going to go back and look at the pictures, you may not pull them out like an actual physical photo album, but it is fun to, go back and scroll through them, especially because phones nowadays create all of these memories for you. And so they'll put them together, and having a really picturesque venue is going to help your phone's AI, because now everything is done by AI, yes, pull everything together and create these wonderful collages and these movies for you. So I'm really excited to see how things pan out. So I know that you still have quite a bit of time to plan your wedding. I think that you've given yourself sufficient time, even while building your career and, continuing to stay true to your family and your friends. But what's next on your list?
I think the next big thing for us is finding a caterer, because that's another thing that we have to think about is food for our guests. Most of our guests, I want to say 90%, will be Armenian, and they kind of expect that same catering that they would have gotten in a regular banquet hall. So having a caterer come out and actually cater at the ranch is going to be a little difficult. I have found someone who's willing to do it. We do have to get a conventional oven and an extra whatever they need for their purposes of cooking for, I think we're going to have about 120 people or so. I think that's going to be the next battle. Other than that, I think I'm lucky to have a lot of my family and friends who are willing to kind of help out. I'm not a very creative person. I just know what I like, and that's about it. My mind stops there when it comes to decorations and visions of all of that stuff. So I just kind of put it on everyone else's hands to figure out the planning part of it.
I don't think that you're giving yourself enough credit in the area of creativity. I think that you might be having some blockades because it's your own wedding, but I know from my wedding prep, my bridal shower, you were very creative if you have a vision. And I think that it's a little bit more difficult when it's your own wedding, that you're so afraid that you want it to be perfect that it's really hard for it to come together. But I definitely think that you need to give yourself a little bit more credit, because I have seen the creativity that you are capable of, and also the delegation, as well as just bringing everything together. So I think that you just need to give yourself a little bit more credit in that area, and to remember that at the end of the day, it is still your big day. So don't be afraid to make those decisions and not be too much pushed or led by those closest to you, because I think that that was one of the things that I struggled with, is that I had a very particular vision of what I wanted my wedding to be and what it to look like. And it was not very traditional by any means. And since I know you're trying to not be super traditional to an Armenian wedding, just remember that you have to be able to put your foot down, because people are going to still try to subtly push you back towards the more traditional, and just stick to your guns, because I know that you do have the creative touch. You just aren't giving yourself credit. I know that when we had our wedding, we had to bring in the conventional ovens. We had to have food warmers. We had to do all of that. And so I know that it seems super overwhelming. However, there are super great companies out there like Bright Rentals, and they will essentially provide you with everything you could ever need, including everything for your bar or for your outdoor kitchen or whatever your caterers need. So I think that it's super overwhelming when you have your list. It's like 150 things long, but there are resources out there. I will definitely be a resource for you. But don't be discouraged because you have to bring everything in. Despite me not going to a banquet hall and going to a actual ranch as well, we had to bring in every single thing, including the bar setup. So I know how crazy it can be, but it absolutely can be done. And the nice thing is that you're not kind of pigeonholed into anything, because you get to say, I don't really like the way that looks. I want something that looks completely different. You can also create things yourself. You can pick and choose what you want from one vendor or not, and not be stuck with what the banquet hall offers. And it's also nice when your caterer just says, these are the things that I need, versus this is what I'm bringing and you're stuck with it, because sometimes maybe their aesthetic doesn't match yours.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The typical banquet halls are very, like I said, very dry, in my opinion. They only have certain linens and certain plates that you could use. And I think that's what's going to make it more unique, being able to pick our own for every little detail of it.
Absolutely. I think that, that way you're not going to have a wedding that looks like everyone else's. That was one of my largest concerns, is that I didn't want to just be stuck into, okay, today's wedding on February 17th is Krista and James. I wanted it to be Krista and James's wedding on February 17th, rather than to scroll through some of these wedding planners' Instagrams. I could literally scroll through and scroll through and scroll through, and I couldn't tell what the bride and groom are, because they all look like the same wedding for 16 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I always joke about this too. Me and Arthur always say this, especially for Armenian weddings. It just feels like the same movie with just different characters. It's always the same routine. We do the same exact things. It's just nothing about it becomes fun anymore, not for the bride or the groom, and neither for any of the guests, because everyone just kind of knows what's going to happen, what everything's going to look like. And a lot of the venues have started doing that too. They get the same wedding planner, so all the halls look the same now too. It's just different color flowers. That's it. Everything else looks the same. So it's going to be exciting to have that uniqueness. Like your wedding was so unique to me. And I remember you were talking about wanting to wear a black dress and how that was an issue because I've always wanted a black dress and no one's letting me wear a black dress.
Yeah, black dresses are a big no-no in every
Yeah.
culture. So I can know how that feels. But I will say that if you continue to look and look and look, even though it may not be a black dress, you can find a dress that still, speaks to you and doesn't enrage your mother, because it would have full blown enraged my mother for me to have worn a black dress. So again, compromise, but I wasn't going to allow her to dictate the cut, the style, anything like that. If it wasn't going to be black, it was going to be my decision. So again, everything is about compromise. So is there anything that you are doing to compromise that you are going to bring in from your traditional Armenian wedding?
I think the only Armenian part from our wedding will just be the food.
Okay.
Whether even when it comes to the church, and we're typically like to just do our ceremony at church. I want to do it at the venue. Little things like that. I think there's really nothing, like I said, Armenian about my wedding besides just the people and the food. That's it. And I mean, I don't even think that's really a compromise because we also enjoy the food. That's a big part of who we are as well. But I think at least having that, my mom feels a little better. She likes to use this phrase that everything's embarrassing. So she thinks that if we're doing an outdoor wedding, it might be embarrassing. If the guests don't like the food, it's going to be embarrassing. If there's an open bar, it might be embarrassing. We should have a bottle at every table. All those little things, I think, but none of it is really being Armenian besides the food.
I think that your mom may fall into the characterization of people who watch that show, Four Weddings, where four brides have their weddings, and each of those brides will attend the other weddings of the other brides, and then they vote on the venue, the food, the flowers, the dress, and the overall vibe. And I think that mothers saw that show come on when it first came about in the early 2000s, late 90s, and they just assumed that when they were planning their little girls' weddings, that everything was going to be critiqued and voted on and given a rating. And they're so afraid that it's going to be embarrassing. Oh, your food was horrific, or, oh, no one had fun. And I think that that's a really, really hard stigma for mothers, especially to say, I want my little girl's wedding to be perfect, but that perfect wedding only exists the way that they see it. Like my mom still to this day, when I asked her to get my dress preserved, was, I don't know why you would get your dress preserved because no one wore my wedding dress. Well, Mom, just because I didn't wear your wedding dress didn't mean that I don't appreciate that it's going to be passed down and that I can't appreciate the beauty of it. But I didn't want to wear a wedding dress that had sleeves with bells on it, that was lace. It's a beautiful dress, but it is a dress that was used in the 1980s. And I didn't get married in the 1980s. I got married in 2024. So it was just very hard for her to let go of what perfect meant in her mind versus perfect in my mind. So I completely understand how the embarrassing statements can come from Mom, and trying to stay true to that, but also saying it's going to be perfect, but what perfect means for me and Artur. So,
Yeah.
I think that that's important to remember as well.
Yeah, my mom is amazing. I love her to death, but she does obviously have her opinions, and it's just how it's always been. But we're both Tauruses, so she didn't get so lucky.
Right.
So I have my opinions as well.
And what about other outside forces? What about your fiance's family? Have you felt any pressure regarding any of the decisions about the wedding from them?
Not at all, honestly. I think I got very, very lucky with that. I think Arthur's that always says that. It's like, you guys are grown up. You guys have done everything you could have done. You guys both have amazing careers, and there's nothing that I could tell you guys that you guys don't know the answer of. So you guys do whatever is best for you guys. And that comes with every decision in our lives. They never have their opinion on it. They just kind of agree with everything we say. I don't know if that's like the best thing either, because sometimes we do need opinion. But for the wedding, yeah, they have given zero opinion, and it's been really nice to just kind of plan it out our own. The only opinion giving is my mom, honestly. No one else gives opinions.
Well, that's good because I think that you've already said that you've kind of prepared your parents throughout your entire life that, they are going to have to deal with maybe what they believe is a rather difficult daughter that doesn't fall in line with every traditional value.
Yes.
What I take from that is that you have lived your life in such a manner that you have not always allowed for outside sources to dictate what you are going to do or how you're going to live your life. So growing up as an Armenian American, how have you been able to kind of lean in towards that type of behavior versus just kind of falling back on tradition?
I think just from even being in Armenia, I always felt very different than my sisters. I have two sisters. I'm the middle child. And I've always just gone my way with everything I wanted. And again, not a best trait either to have, because I do get very stubborn at times. But just coming to America and seeing how different life was here, I knew exactly what I wanted. And I just kind of kept it quiet for a while because I knew what they wanted from me. They wanted me to be an optometrist. They wanted me to marry an Armenian guy in my early 20s and have children. And I knew 100% that is not the life I wanted. I never wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to be a housewife. I never wanted to be in that 9 to 5 job. I wanted to be a business owner. And I think those are the little things that I just put my mind to, and I did it. And I have a little bit of OCD. So I think that helped me a lot with that as well, just to kind of stick to my routines and stick to the things that were making me happy. Going a lot with doing sports and things like that, which a lot of Armenian girls especially don't get into. I think my parents just kind of knew that they have to let me do what I want. Otherwise, I would just kind of throw a fit and still do what I wanted and just start an argument for no reason, when they would have just let me alone and I got to what I wanted.
Well, that's wonderful. I think that, obviously myself knowing a lot about your background allows for me to know that because you've always put your mind to something that you wanted to do and that you didn't allow for people to kind of sway you one way or the other, but the outcome is always a successful outcome, that it's a lot easier for your parents to say, it's not like she's making terrible decisions. She's making decisions. She thinks things out and she's going to accomplish them. So it was a little bit easier, I think, for your parents to allow for you to color outside of the lines of what they had maybe envisioned for their middle daughter to, accomplish so much, because anything that you've put your mind to, you accomplish it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I made a lot of mistakes and I'm actually owning up to a lot of them now. And I tell my mom that I'm like, you were right. Maybe I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. But I think at the end of it, it's all a journey, and it has brought me to where I wanted my whole life, and I remember the first time I told my parents I wanted to go to law school, they were so against it. They did say, like, someone who's an attorney can't have a family. They can't have kids. They're not going to be able to give enough time to their kids. And perhaps they're right, but little do they know I didn't want kids. So it worked out for me anyways. And I think those are the little things, it's like a career is a big thing. That's pretty much what you do for the rest of your life. That's not something you could allow someone to dictate and you choose a path. If I had done the path that initially was the plan of me being an optometrist, I would have 100% not be happy.
Right. I think, like you have stated already, is that you have kind of prepared your parents by not outright telling them that you didn't want to have children, but that you kind of led them to them having to accept that by putting your career first, by doing things that they already knew didn't coincide with having, a housewife mentality. No, I want to go to law school. I want to be a lawyer. I want to own my own business. That they had to kind of catch up throughout the entire journey to understand that, like, oh no, she's really serious, that this is, what she wanted to do. And because they've had that entire time of the journey as well, it's easier for them to then come to the realization, oh, she doesn't want to have children. Whereas a lot of people make this conversation the forefront. Don't tell me what to do. I don't want to have children. Deal with it. And they just think that you're being selfish here. Whereas people really should learn how to do it the way that you did it, to where, no, it's not that I'm going to have this fight here with you. It's the fact that I want to have my own life, and this is what I want my life to look like. And then as they catch up, they realize, oh, okay, so this is what we're going to have to do. And so it's much easier. I think that people really are afraid to do that. They just kind of tell people too often what they want to hear rather than sticking true to what's true to themselves. And that's something that I've noticed with you, is that you were never afraid to say, no, I don't care what the world thinks. This is what I want, and this is how I plan to do it.
Yeah. And I think there's a way of presenting that, especially to family, because I absolutely love my family. I'm very close with my family, and I would never want that distance with them. And just saying that it's my way or the highway, and I'm just walking away from everything that you're saying, and I don't respect you or your opinion, those are the times that, especially with parents and children, that's a big disconnect, and I've always been very true to who I am, but also I respect my mom's opinion in a lot of it. So I have to sit there and kind of explain to her the reasons I don't want certain things, or the reasons I do choose a certain thing. And whether she understands it or not, at least I know that I explained it to her, and later she comes to that realization. And same with me, when she gives an opinion after, I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, that does make sense. So we have our morning coffee times. Me and my mom, we have a 5 a.m. morning every day. We have our coffees, and those are the little conversations that we go through. And I think that's what built that confidence in me to be able to say what I want, and knowing that doesn't matter what I say, she's still gonna accept me for who I am and just let me be the person that I don't want to say born to be, because I don't think anyone's just born to be one person, but I'm able to grow myself to the person that I want to be, that I envision myself to be, not the vision that my parents had for me.
And I think that that's so important, twofold. One is to have supportive parents that allow for you to make mistakes, to have conversations, to grow to be the person that you want to be, and that you can grow to the, what your path really is taking you towards. But I think another thing that you said that's so important is that not everyone recognizes that, especially when we're young, when we're teenagers, when we're in our early 20s, and before we've totally figured out what our life is going to look like, our moms, especially moms, but parents in general, but moms are going to say things that we may not fully understand. And then years later, you're able to say, like, oh, I totally understand where you were coming from. I remember in my teenage years and my early college years that I was very quick to cut people off when I believed that they had done me wrong, rather than to try to ever understand how we had gotten to that position. I remember all the way back to probably when I was like 12, 13, 14 and on, I would see my mom consistently give everyone 1.5 million chances. And it drove me insane, because I could see how much my mom was doing for them. And I didn't see the give and take. And I still don't see the give and take in how my mom treats most people, because I think that she goes above and beyond for a lot of people in her life. And I think that she is the one that makes time to call people to check up on them, to make sure that she's giving them support, to plan things to go with her friends, to fly to see family. She is always the one doing, and I don't see the reciprocal effect. I really don't, still to this day. But I realize for my mom that, yes, she is doing it for other people, but it makes my mom feel extremely important when she is supportive of, the people in her life, and that she feels a sense of pride when she knows what's going on with, my cousins and their children and her sisters and her friends, and really dives deep into their lives. Even if they don't know anything that's going on with my mom's life, she doesn't care. That's not important to her. Whereas I struggled when I was younger to say, like, why would I be this person that did everything for everyone else if I wasn't getting anything in return? And it's not to suggest that I don't go above and beyond for a lot of people in my life. It's just that I believe that there is a point in time where I have to pull back and say, is this giving me any value in my life? And there's certain times where the answer is going to be no, and I should probably cut those people off. And then there are certain times where the answer is going to be yes, even though I can't really see the reciprocal nature, but the relationship is super important. Or I love, the people that will always connect us with that individual. And so maybe not completely burning bridges and like throwing the match on it is the solution. And I didn't understand that when I was younger. I just saw people take advantage of others and just said like, no, this isn't okay. And my mom was always like, well, maybe you should call them. And I was like, I don't like that idea at all, but now I can see the wisdom in that. And so I've started, as I've gotten older, to really give credence to what my mom says.
100%. I'm very similar to you on that. I cut people off too, very frequently. And I think that's why I only have a very just close knit of friends, and everyone else is just kind of acquaintances to me. I think when it comes to people giving the same respect to you as you give to them, and making the time and the effort for people, and they don't do that to you, it's very hard to then, I would say I forgive them and I move forward from it, but I don't like to go back to that pattern of getting on the hamster wheel of again doing things for them when I know that's not going to be, and I never do something with, oh, you should be doing the same thing for me back. But there still comes a time where I'm like, well, I can't just be doing 100% and you're doing 0%, right? Even 10% is a little too low for me. At least like, let's do 70-30. Like, I'm okay with that. But, and I don't know if this is the new generation or what it is, but a lot of people don't know how to respect other people's times and energy and whatever they give them. So I kind of agree with you on that. My mom's very much like your mom as well, just remembers everyone's birthdays, everyone's appointments, everyone's everything. And no one does that back for her. So,
right. No, I completely understand. And I learned that about your mom through my own wedding experience, that she will bend over backwards to assist anyone. And she is such a wonderful woman. And while I can commend both your mom and my mom for being those women, I just don't think that that is what today's woman is anymore. And maybe it's because the dynamic of what a woman truly is today versus when they were, growing up, what that was to them. I just think that, as you stated, that like, it can't be 100 and 0. It can't be 90 and 10. It can be sometimes. It can be that you are there for your friend 100% of the time. And then when you really need them, that they're available for
exactly.
you. It's kind of got to be this wavering number of like this sliding scale. So yeah, nothing is ever going to be 50-50, 100% of the time in a friendship or relationship or even with your family. But it's got to be like this, right? So like you've got to be able to say, when I'm at 10%, you're going to pick up the 90. But when you're at 10%, I will meet you there. And so I think that I have stopped necessarily burning those bridges in such a spectacular fashion. But I now more or less just quietly back off from the friends that I was giving the 100, the 90, the 80, the 70, the 60, the 50% and more all of the time, and not seeing it ever when I needed them. I'm not necessarily going to cut you off. You just now fall into a different box. You now fall into that acquaintance. If I remember your wedding anniversary, I remember your kids' birthdays, I remember your birthday, I'm probably still going to go out of my way to say, to celebrate that special day. But like, I'm no longer going to put together the most spectacular care package and send your kids gifts and drive out to their birthday parties 3 hours away from my house if like you can't even check up on me when I've had surgery. Not one surgery, but 6 surgeries in the last 7 years. And you can't even remember to check up on me. There's just that give and take that no longer is there. If you really called me and you were once extremely important to me and you were in a big bind, I'll probably still be there. But I'm not going to continue to chase you just to have you be my friend, because you're not my friend. You're really just someone that's in my life that probably uses me more than I need to allow it.
100%. I definitely agree with it.
So with regards to the next steps in your life as you plan your wedding, what are you looking most forward to?
I think being married is going to be very different, because even that I've never wanted to do. I'd always tell my mom, like, since I think I was 5 years old when I first made this comment, that I wanted a wedding without a groom. I just wanted a day about me, because I've never done anything for myself ever, whether it was a birthday or any graduation or celebrations. I haven't done anything for myself ever, but I did want a wedding without a groom. So both me and Arthur are not the most traditional people, as you know, and we don't even really care for a marriage. I think, again, that comes with our families, and we're doing it for our parents, because we both do respect and love them so much that we know this is going to make them happy. But I think it's going to be a fun experience, surprisingly. I think once we get there, we're going to be like, oh, maybe they were right, that maybe this was the right move. So I think it'll be interesting to start our lives together finally after, I mean, I've known him since we were 18 years old, and we're now 35 and 36. So finally starting a family together is going to be really nice. I mean, hopefully buying a house with California prices, I don't know, but hopefully. So a lot to look forward to. And I do plan on having my own business, and I think that career path is going to be very exciting. So yeah, just a lot going on and a lot to be excited for. Can't complain.
That's wonderful. I definitely think that marriage is a lot more than it's cracked up to be, or at least it has lived up for myself to be a lot more than my younger years would have believed. I think that I always was like, oh, I don't need to get married. I can be happy, or I could, just be with this person and we don't need to be married. And I think it was also kind of a defense mechanism, because what if I didn't fall into this perfect mold? And I think it starts to get more and more prevalent the older and older you get, especially when everyone else around you may have gotten older, or you think that they have found their forever person, or whatever the case may be. It just was that I had like pre-planned to just be okay with whatever happened. But my mom actually asked me yesterday at dinner, she said, has marriage lived up to everything that you've actually wanted it to be? And I had to sit back and think and say, you know what? It really has. It's with my relationship with Jimmy, I was always felt very secure, and, like we were in a very good adult relationship, which was very drastically different than some of the other relationships that I had had in the past, where now I can look back and be like, oh yeah, like that relationship should have existed in high school, but like never as adults. Because I think that when someone told me that relationships were hard, I correlated that to like fights and like having, your heart broken consistently and trying to work through that and trying to compromise on things you thought relationships were supposed to be and dealing with them. But that when you are really in a committed relationship and then you add that to being married, it just kind of is freeing. Like you're no longer having to look forward to that next step because you're already there. And because of the way that we both view marriage as being a forever commitment and like really truly working together, to, having any issues, to making sure that we don't go to bed mad for too long. I don't ever want to go to bed mad. He could go to bed mad and deal with it in the morning, but he knows that that's a really hard thing for myself. And talking through it, not having fights in front of our friends is a huge, huge role. And really respecting one another is wonderful. But having a husband, I would never have told you that this was going to matter. It just does. And I think it also does because society standards don't really care about your boyfriend or even your life partner. But for some reason, they just truly respect that you're a wife and he's your husband. And I think that that was just kind of a little bit of a weight lifted off of my shoulders. So I think that despite you wanting a wedding without a groom, sorry, Arthur, that you're going to really, truly love being married.
Yeah, I think it's funny when, so I think especially within our careers, it's when you tell people I have a boyfriend and they're like, well, how old are you? It's like, does it matter? Like, we are still happy. We've been together for so long. But yeah, the second I have a ring on my finger, all of a sudden everyone's just over the moon and respecting us in a different manner. Even just as being an engaged couple, it feels a lot more different than just being boyfriend and girlfriend, whether it's within our families or our friends group. It's actually quite interesting to think that one little diamond ring could do that much.
I think it's just that when you are unwilling to make that commitment, that everyone kind of assumes that you never will, and therefore they don't respect the relationship as much, because it's kind of like it is possible to be in this relationship and think that it's forever and that it's great. But at the same time, the outside world sees that you might still have one foot out because you can kind of run if you're not married.
Yeah.
And not to suggest that you can't run if you're married. It just is a lot more complicated, as my law practice would know, because it's very easy to get married. It is not so easy to get divorced. But I just think that people do respect you more. And I know that that's a old, antiquated idea, but I'm not going to lie. It's nice to be a part of that exclusive group, because then, like, you go out, men treat you different because they see a ring on your finger. Women are not so catty and mean. I know that that sounds crazy, but like, women are super mean to single women, and they're not so mean to married women.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a different competition level when you're single as opposed to when you're not as a woman. And I think people just kind of have this perspective of just what life is supposed to be, at what age you're supposed to do a certain thing. And when you're not doing it at that age, it just kind of looks like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you not doing what everyone else is doing at your age? So I think that's where I felt like the disrespect come from. It's like, do you even have your life together? It's like, well, yes, I do have a career. I do have a stable relationship. But I think it still comes down to that little aspect, and I'm kind of interested to see how the next phase is going to be, because I know the next question is, when are you having kids? Even though everyone already knows that we do not want children, I think it's still going to be a topic, because that's just kind of what comes next after marriage. So
I think that the key to that, in my own experience as a married woman who is not having children, you just always lead with what you're doing next with your career. And it kind of stifles people, because they don't really need to know any of the intricacies of why you guys have made this decision. Or, for some women, it's a personal decision. Some women, it's a medical decision. Some people, it's just purely time, right? So you want to have a career, and there's no time to be able to do that and balance having children and being a mom and all of those things. But no one's entitled to that information, despite them thinking that they're entitled to it. So my tidbit of a tip on that is to just always lead with what you're doing next, or to kill them with all of the cool things that you get to do. Go on vacation, plan this trip, go to this music festival, go to Vegas, and do all of these things, and then tell them, I don't have time for kids. and then they just shut up, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening already.
So you had mentioned that you had met Arthur when you were 18, and you guys have been together for a very long time now. What do you think are 3 reasons that has made your relationship so strong and withstand this amount of time without being married?
when me and Arthur initially met when we were 18 years old, we both we were very, very different people. Complete different people, as in not who we are at the moment as each of us individually, but even who we were together. We were best friends before anything else. I think for both of us, sounds really horrible, but we both were very away from the Armenian community. When I moved here from Armenia, I just kind of distanced myself a lot from Armenians, and I always told myself I don't want to be with an Armenian. And meeting him, I was like, wait, he's not like the typical Armenian I know. And I think that friendship just kind of built from that, and we were truly just best friends, with no other intentions of anything else. And we were friends for a long time, I think about 10 years of just consistently keeping in touch. And that usually doesn't happen with male and female relationship. So I think growing separately and experiencing life the way we did in our 20s helped us be who we are today and even more stronger. And I think that's what is helping us be so stable together, because we've both lived our lives the way we wanted to. There's no need for us to, whether it's exploring or now just not understanding each other because I want something and he doesn't. I think we just kind of respect of who we are, and we are very different people too. We do not like the same music. I love working out. He does not. So there's nothing in common. I wake up at 5, he wakes up at 10 a.m. We have nothing in common, but somehow it just works. I think it's just because we are just best friends. So there's no 3 things. There's just one thing. We're best friends.
Yeah, I think that definitely having a relationship platform built on friendship is one of the absolute most important things. I think that if you aren't best friends with your partner, that as you continue to grow or you go through periods of, grief or depression or, just despair over just how life can get in the way, that if you don't have that friendship to fall back on, then it's going to fall apart. Also, if you don't have a million things in common, that you're not getting pulled to the same music concerts and festivals, or that, you're not going to the gym together equally. Jimmy will not go to the gym with me, and it drives me crazy, but it's just his thing, right? So you find ways to still make time for each other because you want to have those conversations. I think that I watch TV only because he's there with me. Like, I'm pretty positive that I zone out 90% of the time, and it's just being in his presence. And it's because we're tired. But I hear all the time people say, oh yeah, I need to have a girls' weekend, or, oh God, I couldn't live with my spouse if they were home all the time. I'm like, what? He's my favorite person. Yeah, he drives me crazy sometimes, but he is my favorite person. And you get to know their intricacies and you force them into liking your music. That's what I did.
Mine is not budging on that field at all.
But see, I can understand with Arthur's music. I could pull you into his music.
Yes.
That's what I did with Jimmy. But it is difficult, but you still find ways to hang out and do things, and you make compromises. Again, Jimmy's not going to go to the gym, but I could get him to go to a 3-day or 4-day music festival because he knows how much it brings me joy. And he's been able to figure out that girls look pretty good in all of their festival fits. So he could just stand there and keep his eyes open. And I don't care because I'm having a good time and all my friends are there. And so, I think that it's just all about compromise. But one of the things that I think that hinders so many couples nowadays is the excessive jealousy that's in so many relationships. And have you ever experienced that in your own?
I think there were certain times where, yes, jealousy was there. And I think it built, because in the beginning of our relationship, we had zero jealousy. And he still does not. I'm the problem in this situation, so I'll speak for myself here. I think it comes down to the festivals, like you said, right? knew what happens at those festivals. I always went to those festivals with him and I had a great time. And then it wasn't until later when someone brought it up to me, like, oh, this happens, this happens. Like, how are you not scared that he goes to his festivals alone? I was like, wait, that's right. Like, why am I not jealous of all these things? Is like something's wrong with me? Is something wrong with that relationship that I'm not worried about these things? And I think that kind of like caused a little bit of an argument between us just because like I made up this like false story that I heard from someone else when I had zero issues with it before. And for some reason that actually made me pull away from the music as well because I didn't want to associate myself with those group of people. I didn't want to be around those festivals knowing that that's how all the girls are dressed there. And they go with a group of 10 guys. Like he has a lot of guy friends and they all love the same music. So they all go together and they have a great time. It's just them guys, but someone put it in my head that that's just not how it is. And that jealousy sparked from there, but we're good now again. But, but that's the only jealousy that I've experienced in our relationship.
But I want to bring you back to what you said is that somebody else, not yourself, not Arthur, put it into your head.
Yeah.
And that's because so many people nowadays are excessively jealous. They don't want their partners to point out somebody that's attractive, both male or female. They're very, very insecure about that. They're afraid to allow for their partners to go to festivals by themselves or to go on girls or boys weekends because typically someone else is putting things into their mind. It's not anything that you've done. It's not anything that Arthur did. It's just that somebody said, well, shouldn't you be worried? And the answer is no, because I've never had any reason to be worried. But people are constantly trying to interject into other people's relationships to say, no, this is really what you should do. And I think it's their own insecurities and their own pasts. And that's something that Jimmy and I had to work through, is that Jimmy had, not great experiences with his partners in the past with, infidelity. And I also had those issues. And so while it has always been my belief that if someone's going to cheat on me, they're going to cheat on me if I am completely myself and chill and secure within myself. And the likelihood that they're going to cheat on me if I'm a crazy psycho bitch, probably even higher. I mean, realistically, if I'm doing everything right and they cheat on me, then I just made a very poor decision in my partner selection. But if I'm crazy and I'm calling them out on every little thing that they're doing because somebody else told me that I should be, I'm kind of pushing them towards doing it because I'm not acting as a supportive partner. I'm not acting as a trusting partner. And so working through past issues or issues of third parties, I think lends to that issue. And I think that you have to work through that if your relationship's going to be strong. So I think that you having had to go through that period of time to say, someone else put this in my head. I let it get into my head. I pulled back and I realized that Arthur hadn't done anything different. It allows for you to grow as a person. So I think that that's, a wonderful trait that you're going to take into your marriage is that you've been able to work through those types of issues.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot too, knowing that he's also not a jealous type. So he keeps me very grounded. So when I do have my little moments, I mean, we're girls, I feel like that just kind of happens whether we like it or not once in a while. And I think the way he doesn't change his behavior at all. He's always been very consistent from the day I met him. He's been very true to who he is. He is always telling me exactly what he's doing, who he's going with. And it's like, I have zero reason to even think anything else. But I think once my group of friends has changed and seeing how they are with their partners and seeing how me and Arthur are, again, we are also very open with stuff like that. Like, oh, like I think that girl's outfit looks really nice, or I think that guy's outfit would look really good on you. A lot of people aren't used to seeing that. So when they see that, they just kind of assume something's wrong with your relationship. Why are you guys acting that way? Why are you guys okay with him looking at another woman? Why are you okay with you going to events by yourself, because I do that because he doesn't like country music. So I go to country events by myself because I don't have really many people in my group that like country music. So he has no problem with it. As long as he knows I'm safe, he's not thinking, well, what are you doing there by yourself? You know?
I think that really great relationships have the ability to evolve, and really great relationships kind of exist in a different plane than a lot of people's relationships that aren't built on a very strong foundation of friendship. They're built on insecurities. They're built on maybe what is inside themselves. So the person who could have told you that this is what happens at festivals, that's what that person may think is going to happen because that's what they would do. Not necessarily because she or he thought that Arthur was going to do anything, but a lot of those individuals who are still so insecure within their own mind is because they haven't done the work personally to get to a place that says, when I go to a concert or when I go to an event, or if I go on a girls' weekend, this is how I would act. I'm going to respect my relationship. I'm going to check in. I'm never going to make comments that purposefully make my partner jealous because I want to get that reaction. You're at a different level of a relationship and a different level of a responsible adult. And I think that a lot of people just stop doing the work once they get into a relationship, and they never ever like fully respect themselves. And I think it's important to have those conversations with your partner to say, oh my God, that girl is absolutely stunning. And have him be able to look and say, yeah, because then I know that he's noticed her. He's not trying to keep it from me. Like, they're men. Men are going to look regardless. I don't care if you're in the most like locked down relationship of your life where your chick is the most jealous human. They still have eyeballs. And I know that because as a female, I have eyeballs and I can see the women that are beautiful around me. The same goes to say that, like, I would rather have the open conversation than for him to feel trapped and then think like, oh, what it would be like to be with a girl that looked like that and maybe wasn't a psychopath. And so I think that that's the important part, is to have those open conversations that maybe people look at from the outside and say, whoa, that's like kind of evolved, and like, what's wrong with your relationship? Nothing's wrong with our relationship because we are communicating about everything, whereas you guys just keep all of these hidden thoughts in your mind. I also equally will point out a good-looking man and say that, you know, like, oh, that outfit, like you said, would look great on you, or that haircut is, you know, nice, or whatever the case may be. And that's perfectly okay. He's going to agree. He's going to have this communication with me. And we have been in places and I'm like, dude, we got to get you a shirt that looks like that. And he's okay with it. And I think that that's a leveled up relationship. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, despite what maybe mainstream society is going to say.
Yeah, I think mainstream society has a lot of views on a lot of things. And when you're very different from that, I don't want to say you get picked on, but you do feel very different. And people tend to point it out to you when so you just either you still stick to who you are and just kind of say how things are, or you stay reserved and just have your relationship behind closed doors of how it is, you know? As long as I think we understand each other, which we do, again, like us, however different we are, we still make such a strong and stable couple that I think that's all that matters to us. And it was kind of a step back for me to lose that value that I had, that I lost that idea of I was never a jealous person, which I have never been. And all of a sudden that little comment just made me, I don't know if it was the timing that they told me that, but it just puts a different perspective on things.
I think that, like you said, as females, we're going to always have days where we're more insecure and days that we feel like complete and utter badasses. And I think that it could have just been the timing. But I also think that what you just said of society picking on you or trying to kind of bring you back down a level when you are more confident than others does have people kind of shy back and say, well, am I the person that's actually being weird? Whereas the longer and longer you are in a stable relationship that really is kind of evolved, the more and more you're going to realize, like, they're going to talk about me and they're going to try to break down our relationship, because you only really try to break down relationships that are really good. When your friend has a really bad relationship, you don't even really bring it up, because you've already kind of moved past the point of, you've already told them, like, hey, I don't think that they treat you very well. And then they're going to stay in the relationship, and then you just kind of move on. But the people who make these comments to you are only telling you that because your relationship appears to be better than them or theirs. And so I think it's just always about society as a whole trying to put everyone back into this little bubble. And I think that the people who orbit kind of here are the really, really lucky and happy ones.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very, every relationship is so different too. And I think there's, again, I'm all for opinions and I'm all for advice when it comes to things, but I think a relationship is very sacred and not many people should be allowed to have comments on a relationship.
Oh, I 100% agree. Is that no one's opinion of your relationship matters. It's really only your own.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure catching up with you and having you on the Daily Vixen. And is there any parting words that you would like to tell the listeners?
Thank you for having me. This is very great. This is my first podcast ever, so this is very exciting. Parting words is just be true to who you are, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. I mean, we all have this one life to live, and the only way you could live it to the fullest is being true to who you are.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.